Hello, I'm old Mr. Kent on my morning e-trike ride. This is Sunday, December 8th, 2024, and yesterday was December 7th when we recognized when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor years ago, 1941. I was still in my mom's womb. Oh man, I got a story to tell you. Anyway, and so the United States went to war with Japan. They were also sending people over to Europe to fight the battle against Hitler's trying to take over. And this is a side note, but when my folks, back then there was no TV and no cell phones, and when you heard something over the radio, that was the best you're going to hear. But they also went to the movies, because in the movies, that was where you got to see the videos, or actually the film that was shot of the war correspondents taking movies of what was going on in the war. Excuse me. So this was back in the 40s, and all you had was film. So my folks went to the movies, and they could take kids free. And of course, I was like between 1 and 6 years old, and so I'd sit and I'd watch the movies. And they were talking about the Germans, and they'd show pictures of of soldiers climbing over hills and rocks, and how they did. And so the thing is so I put that together, and that was my idea of fighting the Germans. And so, make sure I'm not going to get run over here. And so one day, my Aunt Chloe lived with us the whole time I was growing up, and she did a lot of helping around the house. She was my grandma's sister, and so she was making the bed in my folks' bedroom one time, and somebody had put their gum on the bedpost, or on the counter next to the bed. And I saw that, and I don't remember the conversation, but I wanted to chew it, and she said, no, that has germs on it. Well, germs and Germans, in my brain, I looked at that, and I was looking for the Germans crawling over the little convolutions in the chewing gum. I was looking for the Germans crawling over all those little trenches and stuff. So anyway, that's just a side note of my crazy imagination, what got started way back then. Okay, so I just wanted to recognize December 7th, and remember, our country went to war. We lost a lot of good men, but we came out victors. Okay. Now, the next subject is my exercising. I'll put a link to the video about assisting pedal assist, and how you can get a lot more exercise if you haven't watched it. And what I decided to do was to pedal assist in pedal assist 1. And it's kind of like, I'll just give you an example. See, I was going about 5 miles an hour just then, and the first time I tried it, I got up to 6 or 7 miles an hour, and I think I hit 8 miles an hour once. And right now I'm going to I'm going 9 miles an hour, 9.5, get up to 10 here, 10 miles an hour. Whew. That's twice as fast as going along leisurely right now at 5 miles an hour. Now, the reason I was able to get up there, I was so surprised. I'm not kidding you. I was, what I decided to do was to when I start my morning ride, the first half mile, give it all I got, and then enjoy the rest of the ride. Because I was doing it 2 or 3 times, and that made me stiff. But I just do it one time at the beginning of each ride. And now I can get it up to 10 miles an hour without too much trouble. That first time, I think I got up to 8. So I can tell that it's helping. And also, there's other things I noticed since I started doing that a week and a half or so ago. And so in such a short time. So what I am saying, when I get my breath, is if you're riding a trike and you know you're not getting the exercise you could get, pedal assist 1, just give it all you got like I just did. And you don't have to do it. I do it for half a mile. But you don't have to do it that much. Just do enough to please yourself. Make sure you got some exercise. And it works really well. I should start a exercise club online with tricycles. And so, anyway, so I just wanted to tell you that that's a good exercise. It works good for me. I'll give you another side story. When I was in high school, I started when I was in junior high doing push-ups and chin-ups and all that stuff. I think I've told you that. One thing I didn't tell you, or forgot to, is that one day in gym class, my teacher said, let's see who can do the most push-ups. Well, I was already doing 50 push-ups every morning at home. And so everybody got down. And, all at once, we started going. And I wasn't watching the other guys. But anyway, they were dropping out. I got up to 50, and I was getting tired, but I kept going. And another one of my friends. Anyway, I kept going. I got up to 70. I got up to 80. Man, I was really getting worn out. And then finally I got up to 90, and I was just barely able to go. But I pushed and I pushed. I got up to 100, and then all of a sudden I had this sharp pain in my head, and I just collapsed down. But I beat the other guys. And when the pain hit, I also heard a bing, and so I don't know what that was. And anyway, these are side stories. It's not what I intended to talk about this morning. So anyway, those are some things that happen. I'll tell you about. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about this morning, and I'll title it, The Best Amateur Radio Antenna I Ever Built. Okay? So, if you're not interested in amateur radio antennas, I'm sorry, but that was my life. In fact, I'll introduce this by telling you that I never was interested in electronics until where I was teaching shop. They said, next year you're going to teach electronics. And I knew nothing about electronics and didn't want to know anything about electronics. But if I was going to keep my job, I had to learn electronics. So that summer I went to summer school, fell in love with electronics, and started teaching it, and just loved it. So, but anyway, when I got back from summer school, I wanted to learn more about electronics, and so I took a couple of courses, and I told you all about that before, so I won't bore you. But turns out the instructor wasn't as smart or didn't know as much as I did. So I said, this is a waste of time. But I wanted to get hands-on, and like some guys, they build an amplifier. Well, okay, so you get the amplifier built, and all you do is sit and listen to it. I didn't want that. I wanted something to keep my hands busy and stuff. So my dad had been a ham radio operator, so I thought, that's what I'm going to do. So I got my amateur radio license, and it got there in late fall from whenever I took the test. And back then, you didn't know until for 6 weeks. Took about 6 weeks to get the results back, and you got it in the mail. And so it was getting to be winter time, and I've got my QSL card. I sketched for the QSL card. I sketched a facsimile of how my amateur radio antenna was hooked up. It was called a 40-meter dipole, and I won't get into that, but 40 meter tells you the wavelength of the signal as it goes out from the antenna. So anyway, I get sidetracked so easily. That's the trouble of getting old. So what was I talking about? So anyway, that's what my antenna looked like. And you'll notice that one end was hooked to a tree, and the other end was hooked to my neighbor's chimney. Okay, so it had snowed, it was icy cold, it was freezing, but I had my radio equipment built, and I got a picture of what my first radio station looked like, and that was a whole lot of other stories. But so I had that done. Now all I had to do was get my antenna up. Well, it had rained, or it had snowed, everything was frozen. So climbing the tree to put the antenna in the tree, that was a foolish thing to do, because all of the where the branches fed out, all the notches in the tree, they still had ice in them. So my foot I put my foot up where the two limbs came together, and it like wanted to slip out. But I was determined. And so I wanted to get that antenna as high as possible. There's an old saying in amateur radio, if your antenna didn't blow down last winter, it wasn't high enough. And so I wanted to get it as high as I can, because you get more contacts. More people can hear you, and you can also pick up more people and hear them. And so I climbed up, and I got that end of the antenna connected. Here comes the dogs. I think I got to hit a traffic area, so I'll finish the story when I get through the traffic area. So here we go. Okay. Okay, so that got that part of the antenna hooked up. And then, of course, I had to run a wire from my ham radio station up to the middle section. And so that wasn't hard at all. But my neighbor had a 2-story house. He was a super nice guy. In fact, I helped him a lot, and he helped me a lot on a lot of projects and stuff. And so I asked him if I could put an antenna on his roof, and he said yeah. And what I did was I welded up with angle iron. I welded up a frame that I could just hook the frame to the chimney, and then have the wire hooked to the frame when I put it up. And so and he was going to help me do it. So he had plenty of ladders. Looks like I got a car coming. He had plenty of ladders so that I could get on the roof of the second-story house. The only thing is, the roof had ice all over it. There were certain places, like near a what do they call it, a dormer window that you look out, you know, that I could get into the notch and crawl up, and so I was figuring out my way out, and of course had a rope, so when I got to the top, I could lift up the frame I made, and so I was carrying that rope with me, and about halfway up, it was looking pretty scary, and my neighbor says, "I know why they call that a dipole antenna." And I said, "Why?" He says, "Because a lot of guys die putting it up." And so, anyway, so I finally got up to the chimney, and was able to pull the line up. And then the only thing is I didn't have. It looks like I'm going to have to go around these guys here. There we go. Get by these guys. Okay, get back down on the road. So I'm up there, and I had my legs straddling the peak of the roof, and I had the rope in my hand, and I can't remember. I think we had tied the rope over the house to the other side, so I could pull myself up there. That's what it was. The far side of the house I had tied to a fence, and that way I could pull myself up the near side of the house with a rope. Now it's coming back to me. So I had that, so I got up there, and I was straddling the icy peak. It was all ice. And all of a sudden I turned, and I started to slip down the far side. And I caught myself, and I thought, I should have tied the rope on the other end too. But anyway, so I finally got that antenna. And by the way, this isn't the best antenna I ever put up. It's just the first one I ever did. And so I finally got that antenna mounted on that frame, and got everything wired up. Came down off of the house very carefully, and was very thankful that nothing happened to me. And so anyway, so that was my very first antenna, and I lived in that house for quite a while, and it took me a long time. See, when I built my station, some things I had to rewire, and I rewired one actually wrong. This was going to the vacuum tube, if you know what that is nowadays. Anyway, I'll put a picture on along with it. But anyway, it was for the power supply to the transmitter, which was out of a B-17. And so the only thing is I hooked one of the wires that goes to the vacuum tube. I hooked it wrong. I hooked the wire to the wrong prong. And so it took me a long time before I finally got it figured out and got on the air. And I got on the air, and from then on, and I was on Morse code as a beginner, as a novice, and I fell in love with Morse code. And so I was just always, whenever I'd come home from teaching school and have dinner or whatever, and then get on usually about 7 in the evening and start calling CQ, which is a C and a Q, which means you're inviting anybody to answer you. And so I got lots of good contacts. And of course they sent their QSL cards, and I sent mine, and all that kind of stuff I did. And I lived in that house, and I ended up advancing to the what's called the general license. And then I was able to use, I'll put the picture of after I got the general license, then I could use a different transmitter and get on with a microphone and all that kind of stuff. So that was my first antenna, and I used it for several years. And then I got out of ham radio. I went through a divorce, and that always changes everything. And I didn't get back on until I moved up to Spokane, Washington. Actually, let's see, let me think now. Yeah, I really didn't get on until I got back up to Spokane, Washington. Because I was in Pasco, Washington. Now I moved up to Spokane. And it looks like this is going to be quite a long video. So I'll just put a picture of the Spokane transmitter or antenna up behind the house. I was roofing the house and I took that picture, but you can see there's a white pole standing up in back with a little bit of a curvature to it. But that was my antenna, my first antenna in Spokane. But I think I'm going to have to make this a two-part video because it's getting to be kind of long, and I got too many extra stories stuck in there. So next video, I'll move on, and actually we will get to the best antenna that best antenna that I ever made for my ham radio. And it was called a magnetic loop, if you want to look that one up. All right. Excuse me. Thank you for watching my video, and God bless.